We're taking a unique approach to this enhanced radio version of Christmas Carol. For starters, we are doing two versions of the show, a live version
Christmas, a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure.
and an online version.
If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
In the live version, only the characters Scrooge interacts with in real life will appear on stage. Everyone else who appears in a vision or memory or is a ghost appears virtually or on screen. In the online version, everyone appears on screen. Why add video? Well, a couple of reasons actually. If you're watching from home, it gives you all something to look at while you're listening. Secondly, it allows us to work in smaller groups and still maintain some semblance of social distancing.
It's been different because we haven't seen as many people throughout the process. I mean, usually there's a few weeks where there's only a couple people in and then everyone comes together, but there hasn't been as many people here, and so there will be parts of the show that are going to be new to us, even up until the last day probably. So
I'm just really impressed with the creativity at Aberdeen Community Theater and the way that the staff came up with a way to do a show to address the concerns that we have going on now in the community with COVID. Just because we're at a difficult time kind of in society, our state certainly is in trouble, doesn't mean that we can give up the things that are important, that make life enjoyable, that teach us things like arts and culture and theater. We have to find a different way to be able to continue those things.
Lastly, if anyone in the cast or crew had to end up quarantining for some reason, the show could still move forward, which is really important. So, what can you expect to see? Well, we're still doing this like a radio show. You'll see actors holding their scripts, standing in front of a microphone just like they did in the golden age of radio and still do today. But we're adding lots of other video elements to keep it visually interesting for you. Things like original artwork from several local artists in several different styles to represent some of the scenes. We're also building a few set pieces to represent other scenes. You know, there's something poignant about seeing an empty theatrical set with no actors, a reminder that we're all having to make adjustments these days.
Each set is its own identity. So we have the office and its door, we have the school, which is what I'm working on now, the schoolroom, and we have the home.
We have the same technical elements we have to do, so there's still going to be lighting, there's a lot of sound design that has to go into this, and obviously right now we're working on set.
So we filmed all of the actors in front of a green screen, so we'll be able to add backgrounds later in the editing process. All that'll be nice, but the real meat and potatoes of the show will be a purely audio experience. We recorded all the actors twice, once for a reference for rehearsals, then the final version that you'll hear. And that's where the fun began. We'll be able to make characters sound like they're traveling across the room, like this. Or we can add ghostly effects to make them sound like they're otherworldly or in a different environment. We can also add fun sound effects, like rattling chains, doors opening and closing, or proposing a toast. So we hope you'll tune in and join us. This should be a feast for the eyes and the ears.
Aberdeen Community Theater.